Hello, everyone. There is a war happening inside you right now, a war between two versions of yourself. One version smiles when it does not want to. One version agrees when it disagrees. One version softens its voice, rounds its edges, and shrinks its presence so that the people around it feel comfortable. That version of you has been trained, conditioned, and rewarded since childhood for one single achievement, being liked. And today, I am here to tell you that being liked is one of the most dangerous games you will ever play. Let me explain something that social psychology has understood for decades, but that very few people have had the courage to say out loud. Likability and respect are not the same thing. They are not even close relatives. In fact, in many cases, they are direct enemies. The more desperately you chase being liked, the more invisible you become to the people whose opinions actually shape your life, your career, and your destiny. Think about the people you truly respect in your life, not the people you enjoy having drinks with, not the people who laugh at your jokes, the people whose word carries weight, the people who walk into a room and shift the energy, the people you would never dare to waste time or lie to. Ask yourself honestly, are those people trying to be liked? Are they bending themselves into shapes that please everyone around them? Are they carefully monitoring every sentence they speak to make sure nobody feels even slightly disturbed? No, they are not. And that is not a coincidence. There is a principle buried deep inside dark psychology called the scarcity of approval. It states that when a person distributes their approval generously, nodding at everything, agreeing with everyone, laughing at every joke, never challenging, never refusing, their approval becomes worthless. You cannot buy respect with unlimited kindness. Unlimited kindness is not strength. It is a strategy built on fear. The fear of rejection, the fear of conflict, the fear of being seen as difficult, cold, or arrogant. But here is the dark truth about that fear. The people who trigger that fear in you are not afraid of you at all. And that asymmetry, that imbalance of fear, is where your power drains away every single day without you noticing. Robert Cialdini, in his legendary work on influence, identified social proof and liking as primary mechanisms of persuasion. But what he was describing was how to move the masses, not how to command the few. Masses like people. Leaders respect power, and power is never built on being agreeable. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago when he wrote that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. And before you recoil from that statement, understand what he was actually describing. He was not describing cruelty. He was not describing manipulation. He was describing the psychological reality of what makes a human being take you seriously. Love, in the political and social sense he used it, is conditional. It vanishes the moment you stop performing for it. But respect, earned through consistency, through the willingness to hold a line, through the demonstration that your no actually means no, that is durable. That survives disagreement. That survives conflict. That survives the test of time. Now let us talk about what actually happens inside the human mind when you stop trying to be liked. When you stop seeking approval, something strange and powerful occurs. People become uncertain about you. And uncertainty, in the psychology of social dynamics, breeds attention. It breeds curiosity. It breeds a subtle but unmistakable form of tension that most people interpret without knowing it as the presence of someone significant. You stop being background noise. You become a variable in the equation that others cannot simply dismiss or categorize. They have to work slightly harder to understand you. And what we work for, we value. Compare this to the person who is always available, always accommodating, always eager to smooth over friction. That person is comfortable. That person is pleasant. But pleasant is not magnetic. Pleasant does not inspire awe. Pleasant does not sit in someone's mind long after they have left the room. The dark irony is that in your effort to never be disliked, you have made yourself entirely forgettable. There is another layer to this. The psychology of self-betrayal. Every time you pretend to agree when you do not, every time you laugh at something that offends you, every time you shrink your opinion to make someone else comfortable, you are sending a signal to your own nervous system. The signal is this: my peace is less important than your approval. My truth is negotiable. My boundaries are decorations. And over time, that signal does not just affect how others see you, it shapes how you see yourself. People who cannot say no to others eventually cannot say yes to themselves. The inability to hold a boundary externally becomes an inability to hold a vision internally. You become soft at the center, and people around you feel that softness even when they cannot name it. They press against it. They test it. And when it gives way, as it always does, they lose something they may not even have been conscious of wanting: the experience of encountering a person who cannot be moved. The dark power of respect is not about being harsh. It is not about being cold or deliberately difficult or treating people with contempt. That is the misunderstanding that keeps most people trapped in either servile likability or performative intimidation. Neither of those is what we are talking about. What we are talking about is something rarer and more difficult than either of those extremes. We are talking about the power of authentic stillness, the power of the person who does not need the room to validate them in order to remain fully themselves, the power of someone who listens to you completely, disagrees with you completely, and does so without malice, without apology, and without the slightest tremor of anxiety about whether you will still think well of them afterward. That kind of person rewires the nervous system of everyone around them, because most people have never encountered it. Most people have only ever experienced two modes: people who agree with them and people who attack them. When you arrive as the third option, the person who holds their ground peacefully, who disagrees without rage, who says no without guilt, you become something that the human brain does not have an easy category for. And things the brain cannot easily categorize, it does not ignore. In the ancient traditions of Stoic philosophy, Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions, not his likability, not his social warmth, his ambitions, what he was willing to stand for, what he refused to abandon when the cost of keeping it became social discomfort. The Stoics understood something that modern culture, with its obsession with validation and relatability, has almost entirely forgotten. Dignity is not given, it is carved. It is carved through repeated choices. The choice to speak when silence would be safer, the choice to hold your position when agreement would be easier, the choice to let someone walk away from the relationship rather than compromise the principle they were asking you to compromise. Every one of those choices is a vote for the version of yourself that commands rooms rather than decorates them, a vote for the version that people remember, reference, and ultimately follow. Now here is the hardest part of this speech, and it is the part that separates theory from transformation. The withdrawal of likability seeking is painful. It will cost you. Some people in your life are only there because you are easy to be around, because you never challenge them, because your presence requires nothing from them. When you begin to change, when you begin to hold your opinions with firmness, when you begin to decline what you used to automatically accept, when you begin to introduce friction into relationships that had none, some of those people will leave. And here is the dark gift inside that loss. The people who leave when you develop standards were never in relationship with you. They were in relationship with your compliance. They did not like you. They liked the convenience of you. And their departure, as painful as it is, clears the space that authentic respect requires. Because respect is selective by nature. It does not exist in crowds. It crystallizes between specific people who have encountered each other's real edges and found them solid. You cannot build that with everyone. You were never meant to. So stop trying to be liked by everyone. Start being understood by the few. Start being respected by the ones who matter. Start becoming the person in the room whose silence carries weight, whose agreement means something because it is not automatic, whose presence commands attention not through performance, but through the rare and difficult achievement of being entirely, unapologetically, and completely yourself. That is not darkness. That is the most honest light you will ever find. And it begins the moment you stop needing the applause to keep going.